On number 10 we have Remnant from the Ashes is an action role-playing third-person shooter developed by Gunfire Games and published by Perfect World Entertainment. It was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One on August 20, 2019. The game received generally positive reviews upon release and more than 1 million units have been sold. These are the system requirements for Remnant from the Ashes for PC. On number 9 these are the system requirements for Dragon Age Inquisition. On number 8 we have Spelunky 2 is a 2020 platform video game developed by Mosmith and Blitworks. It is the sequel to Spelunky, 2008, and was released for Windows and PlayStation 4 in September 2020, with a Nintendo Switch announced for mid-2021. The game received critical acclaim upon release. Like its predecessor, Spelunky 2 is a 2D platform game. In the game, the player assumes control of Anna, the daughter of the explorer from the first game, who visits the moon in order to find her missing parents. In the game, Anna must navigate deadly caves filled with hostile enemies and traps to collect treasures. When Anna dies, she will have to start from the beginning of the level and lose most of her items, and the level is rearranged through procedural generation to present new challenges and paths. Each stage also features several layers which can be explored by the player. These are the system requirements for the Spelunky 2. On number 7 we have Mutant Year Zero. Road to Eden is a turn-based tactical role-playing video game developed by Swedish studio The Bearded Ladies and published by Funcom. Based on the tabletop role-playing game Mutant Year Zero, the game was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in December 2018. A Nintendo Switch version of the game was released on July 30, 2019. The game was described by publisher Funcom as a tactical adventure game, played from an isometric perspective. There are 3 difficulty levels for players to choose from. Players control a party of 3 characters as they navigate the game's world. Different characters have different abilities and skills. Selma, a mutated human character, is an expert in explosives. Dux, a duck hybrid, is equipped with a long-range crossbow. Borman uses shotguns as one of its weapons. Each character also has their own passive, minor and major mutation attacks that can be activated and customized. The team as a whole levels up as the game progresses, and new weapons and gears could be unlocked. The game also features a skill tree, and a branching story. There are 5 characters for players to choose from, including 3 default characters and 2 recruitable ones. These are the specs for Mutant Year Zero, Road to Eden. On number 6 we have Wolfenstein. The New Order is a 2014 action-adventure first-person shooter video game developed by Machine Games and published by Bethesda Softworks. It was released on May 20, 2014 for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One. The game is the 7th main entry in the Wolfenstein series and the successor to 2009's Wolfenstein, set in an alternate history 1960s Europe where the Nazis won the Second World War. The story follows war veteran William B.J. Blazkowicz and his efforts to stop the Nazis from ruling over the world. The game is played from a first-person perspective and most of its levels are navigated on foot. The story is arranged in chapters, which players complete in order to progress. A morality choice in the prologue alters the game's storyline. Some characters and small plot points are replaced throughout the 2 timelines. The game features a variety of weapons, most of which can be dual-wielded. A cover system is present. Development began in 2010, soon after id Software gave Machine Games the rights for the franchise. The development team envisioned Wolfenstein, The New Order as a first-person action-adventure game, taking inspiration from previous games in the series and particularly focusing on the combat and adventure elements. The game attempts to delve into character development of Blazkowicz, unlike its predecessors, a choice from the developers to interest players in the story. They aim to portray him in a heroic fashion. These are the specs for Wolfenstein: The New Order. On number 5 we have Divinity: Original Sin is a fantasy role-playing video game developed by Larian Studios. The game was partially funded through Kickstarter and is a prequel to Divine Divinity. Upon its release in 2014, the game received acclaim from critics, with many praising its ability to modernize the rebounds per game genre. The game ships with the editor that created it, allowing players to create their own single-player and multiplayer adventures and publish them online. 4. An enhanced edition of the game, featuring voice acting and various other updates, was released in October 2015. A sequel to the game, titled Divinity: Original Sin 2, was released in September 2017. Original Sin is in rebounds per game in the Divinity universe. Divinity: Original Sin concerns two heroes. The game touts turn-based combat, cooperative multiplayer, an interactive world, and includes a modding tool used for creating new content. These are the specs for Divinity: Original Sin. On number 4 we have Total War: Attila is a strategy video game developed by Creative Assembly and published by Sega, released on February 17, 2015 for Microsoft Windows, OS X, and Linux. It is the 9th standalone game in the Total War series of video games. The game begins in 395 AD, during what is now called Late Antiquity, the transition period from classical Rome to the medieval age in European history. While the title character will be able to become the leader of the Huns, he is not yet in power at the start of the campaign. Due to its setting near the Dark Ages, the game is possibly a spiritual successor to Rome Total War: Barbarian Invasion. These are the specs for Total War: Attila. On number 3 we have Luftrausers is a shoot-'em-up video game developed by Netherlands-based indie developer Studio Vlambeer and published by Devolver Digital for Microsoft Windows, OS X, Linux, PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita. A remake of the game, titled Luftrausers, was developed by Paul Kohler for Commodore 64, Commodore 128 and Commodore 64 game system, and released by RGCD and Vlambeer on December 8, 2017. Luftrausers is an airplane-based shoot-'em-up. Unlike traditional shoot-'em-ups, where the direction of the player craft is fixed, Luftrausers allows 360 degrees of motion, more akin to a multi-directional shooter. However, the player's main weapon can only fire from the front, forcing the player to take into account the position and angle of the airplane. These are the specs for Luftrausers. On number 2 we have Soma, stylized as Soma, is a survival horror video game developed and published by Frictional Games. 1-2, the game was released on September 22, 2015 for Microsoft Windows, OS X, Linux, PlayStation 4-3, and on December 1, 2017 on Xbox One. 4. Soma takes place on an underwater remote research facility that contains machinery which are exhibiting human characteristics, such as consciousness. Simon Jarrett, a fish-out-of-water protagonist, finds himself there under mysterious circumstances and embarks upon discovering its history, while trying to make sense of his predicament and potential future. 5-6. Soma's gameplay builds on the conventions established in the previous horror titles of Frictional Games, including an emphasis on stealthy evasion of threats, puzzle solving and immersion. However, in a break with this tradition, it also de-emphasizes aspects such as inventory management in favor of a tighter focus on narrative. Soma received positive reviews from critics, who applauded its story and voice acting, although its enemy design and encounters received some criticism. These are the specs of Soma. On number 1 we have Cuphead is a 2017 run-and-gun video game developed and published by Studio MDHR. The game was inspired by the rubber hose style of animation used in cartoons of the 1930s, such as the work of Fleischer Studios and Walt Disney Animation Studios, and sought to emulate their subversive and surrealist qualities. Cuphead features 1 or 2 players taking control of animated characters Cuphead and his brother Mugman to fight through several levels that culminate in boss fights, in order to repay their debt to the devil. The game was praised for its art style and noted for its challenging difficulty. It was both a critical and commercial success, winning several awards and selling over 6 million copies within 3 years. An animated series based on the game is in production by Netflix. These are the specs for Cuphead. Moving to next, I am giving a bonus game is Streets of Rage 4 is a beat-em-up game developed by Dotemu, Lizard Cube, and Guard Crush Games. It is a continuation of Sega's Streets of Rage series, and was released in 2020 for Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, MacOS, and Linux. It received generally positive reviews from critics, and has sold over 1.5 million digital copies worldwide. 10 years after the events of Streets of Rage 3, in which the criminal mastermind Mr. X was defeated, Wood Oak City falls under the control of a new crime syndicate led by Mr. X's children, the White Twins, who plan to brainwash its citizens with hypnotic music. Blaze fielding calls and some old favors to take the twins down. Joining Blaze are her old friends Axel Stone and Adam Hunter, Adam's daughter Cherry Hunter, and Floyd Araya, a cybernetically enhanced apprentice of Dr. Zan. These are the specs for Streets of Rage 4. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe.